A wooden door opens as 16-year-old Becky stands outside her third foster home. 3 years after surviving a violent assault in the woods, her life remains anything but peaceful. She has already escaped 2 different placements, and now, Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs are taking a turn. Her loyal dog Diego is with her. Becky flashes an unnaturally wide grin. She giggles at every little comment during dinner. When the couple mentions church, Becky nods eagerly, acting like the most innocent, pious teenager on the planet. Talk about an award-winning performance. Mrs. Gibbs smiles softly and wishes her a quiet good night. The second the bedroom door closes, Becky's cheerful face completely drops. Her eyes turn ice cold. She silently unlatches the window, steps out into the cool night air, and leaves with Diego into the dark woods. Deep in the forest, Becky trains her body like a soldier. She builds heavy wooden snares and hidden tripwires across the brush. She practices tactical maneuvers and even tumbles hard into one of her own hidden pits. Practice makes perfect. Morning arrives, and the sun shines over a cozy country kitchen. Becky sits at the table enjoying a warm breakfast with a gentle woman named Alina. Alina had picked Becky up while she was hitchhiking on the highway months ago. Ever since then, Becky has lived safely in her isolated home. Later that afternoon, Becky works a shift at a local diner. A customer annoys her at the counter. Becky stares at him with complete silence. In her mind, she visualizes eliminating him in the most gruesome way possible. She blinks, clearing the dark fantasy from her head, and hands him his coffee. Phew, that guy got lucky. Suddenly, a loud engine roars outside as a black vehicle pulls into the parking lot. 3 men step out and walk through the diner doors. Their names are Anthony, Turner, and Seann. They belong to an extremist group called the Noble Men. Quite ironic, considering their agenda is not so noble. Anthony and Turner immediately start making obnoxious comments toward Becky. Seann, however, seems timid and nervous. They sit down at a table, and Anthony continues to taunt her relentlessly. Becky decides to teach him a lesson. She walks over with a pot of scalding hot coffee and accidentally pours the steaming liquid directly into Anthony's lap. He leaps up screaming while the rest of them burst out laughing. Anthony's face turns bright red with embarrassment. He glares at Becky with pure hatred, taking the incident completely personally. He decides to wait outside in the shadows until closing time. Things are about to get ugly real quick. The 3 men trace her all the way back to Alina's secluded house deep in the countryside. Late that night, strange creaking noises echo through the dark hallway. Becky wakes up instantly and steps into the living room to investigate. Suddenly, Anthony grabs her from behind. He wants to teach her a lesson. Becky screams for Diego to attack. But before the dog can leap forward, Turner strikes the hound hard across the head, downing him instantly. Turner pulls out a heavy firearm and points it directly at Becky. Seann walks through the front door and freezes in absolute shock. He looks at the hostage situation with wide eyes. This was clearly not what they agreed to in the car. Suddenly, the lights flash on as Alina appears in the doorway holding a hunting rifle. She points the long barrel at the intruders and orders them to put down their weapons. Turner slowly lowers his weapon, but Anthony reaches into his back pocket, pulls out a concealed firearm, and fires directly at Alina, eliminating her on the spot. Before Becky can even act, Anthony knocks her completely unconscious. Hours later, Becky opens her eyes and groans from the sharp pain in her head. She looks across the hardwood floor and sees Alina's non-responsive body lying on the floor. She frantically searches every room in the house, but Diego is nowhere to be found. They killed her good Samaritan and stole her dog. Big mistake. Becky bows her head for one final farewell. Her sorrow instantly transforms into pure rage. She straps on her tactical gear, gathers her gear, and prepares to rescue her dog and avenge Alina. If only these guys understood who they were messing with, they'd run for their lives while they still had the chance. But before things get crazy, hit that subscribe button so you never miss our weekly recaps. Miles away on a deserted dirt road, the 3 men pull over and step out of their vehicle. Seann immediately confronts Anthony in a panic, shouting about the elderly woman. He screams that Becky will go straight to the authorities, and he refuses to get locked up. Anthony grabs Seann by the collar, shoves him against the car door, and warns him to stay calm. No guessing who their weak link is. Meanwhile, Becky remembers a key detail from the diner conversation. She heard the men mention meeting someone named Daryl. She uses public records to search local names and discovers only 2 people named Daryl nearby. She travels to the first address, but finds an elderly woman smoking a hookah. The woman clearly is not her target. Becky realizes it has to be the second Daryl. At Daryl's location, Becky crouches low behind a glass door and spots Diego locked tight inside a heavy metal cage. Becky silently circles the main house, finds an unlocked window, and slips into Daryl's private study. She carefully searches his desk and discovers some blueprints spread across the table. She pulls out her phone and takes multiple photos of the plan. In the dining hall, the other Daryl sits at the head of a massive wooden table. He is an ex-Army Ranger and one of the leaders of the Noble Men group. Sitting around him are Anthony, Turner, Seann, and another operative named Twig. Daryl notices Seann shaking nervously and asks why he looks so uneasy. He also asks why there is a captured hound in his house. Anthony lies quickly, claiming the dog got into a fight with another dog on their way, and they wanted him to be calm. If only Diego could speak right now. Seann can't bear the lies and excuses himself from the table. He rushes toward the bathroom. Daryl eyes him suspiciously, slides out of his chair, and follows him down the hall. He corners Seann and leads him directly into his private study. Hearing footsteps approaching the door, Becky freezes in terror. She quickly slides underneath the heavy wooden bed just as the door swings open. One wrong move, and she's dead. Daryl closes the door behind him and pulls a small metallic thumb drive from his pocket. He tells Seann that this drive holds encrypted data on every single member of the Noble Men. Then, he tells Seann a dark story from his military service. One time, a squad member acted too anxious during an intense attack. Daryl describes how he used his bare hands to eliminate his comrade to keep the unit quiet. Relax, Daryl. I think Seann got the message. The moment they leave, Becky slides out from under the bed. She reaches onto the desk and grabs the thumb drive. Becky sneaks out of the house and makes her way into Daryl's barn. Inside, her eyes widen as she discovers an impressive armory filled with tactical gear, explosive devices, and heavy weaponry. Oh, it's game on now. Back inside the house, a loud chime echoes through the hall. The doorbell has just rung. Daryl walks over to the front porch, but no one is there. Instead, he finds a lone mobile phone sitting on the doormat. Suddenly, the device rings. Daryl picks it up and carries it directly to the dining room table. The glowing screen displays the caller ID in bold text, Becky. The sight breaks Seann's remaining composure. He panics completely, forcing the men to finally confess to their leader. However, they leave out the most brutal details, claiming they only stole the dog because she was messing with them at the diner. Daryl glares at them in disgust and orders them to return her dog immediately. But Anthony insists on handling her first, arguing that he needs to calm her down or risk getting reported to the cops. Anthony marches off into the dark woods to hunt down Becky, but he walks directly into her territory. A hidden rope snaps around his boot, catching him in her trap. Back at the estate, the remaining men wait in the living room for Anthony's return. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattles the front door. Daryl steps up to the door and looks through the small glass. Outside, he sees Anthony tightly bound to a wooden chair on the porch. Anthony's mouth is gagged, and he frantically shakes his head, mumbling wild warnings. Daryl cannot understand what he is saying and opens the door. Boom! A massive explosion detonates on the porch, instantly blowing Anthony to pieces. Rest in pieces, Anthony. Daryl pulls out his weapon, aims it directly at Turner and Seann, and commands them to say the whole truth. Terrified for their lives, the two men break down and confess that they had killed an old lady during the break-in. Seann becomes frantic and anxious. Daryl stares at him with complete contempt. He lunges forward, grabs Seann by the head, and uses his bare hands to break his neck, dispatching him on the spot. So much for brotherhood. Suddenly, the mobile phone on the table rings again. Daryl answers the call. He threatens to eliminate her dog if she doesn't surrender. Becky doesn't flinch. She warns him that the moment she hears a gunshot, she will send the photos of their blueprints straight to the cops. Daryl threatens to eliminate her instead, but Becky reveals that he will never find the thumb drive she hid. That caught Daryl's attention real quick. Determined to end the threat, Twig decides to take matters into his own hands. He grabs a heavy rifle, walks outside onto the dock, and scans for movement. He thinks he's hunting her, but she's already locked target. Suddenly, Becky shoots a crossbow bolt right through his open mouth. Yikes! Daryl pulls the arrow right out of Twig's face. Driven by pure rage, Twig chases Becky down toward the weaponry barn. Bro clearly didn't learn from Anthony. Inside the main house, Daryl commands Turner to go outside and take down the girl. Turner nods obediently and runs out the door. But instead of going for Becky, Turner jumps into a pickup truck and flees the scene entirely. So much for loyalty. Twig reaches the barn and closes the door behind Becky. Bad idea, Twig. He thinks he has trapped her inside. Instead, Becky releases a canister of tear gas into the room. Twig begins coughing violently. He starts shooting blindly until he completely runs out of ammunition. Choking on fumes, Twig opens the door and comes crawling out into the fresh air. Suddenly, Becky storms out of the smoke with a heavy machete and, well, you know what comes next. At that exact moment, a tranquilizer dart hits her from behind. Becky wakes up bound tightly to a wooden chair. Daryl is seated directly across from her. He pulls out the famous key, which he recovered from her jacket, and detaches the outer piece. For the first time, Becky sees that the key has precise coordinates inscribed inside the metal. Heavy footsteps approach as someone else walks into the room. It is the first Daryl she met earlier on the porch. Turns out she is Daryl's mom and the founding leader of the Noble Men organization. Let's call her Lady Daryl. Lady Daryl steps forward and asks Becky for the thumb drive. Becky simply glares at her and spits directly in her face. What a response. Enraged, Lady Daryl uses Diego to taunt her. Becky screams for them to stop. Once she has their full attention, she teases them about how she plans to end their lives. Suddenly, Becky snaps one of her hands out of the bonds. She grabs a canister and uses it to spray gas directly on Daryl's face. Daryl screams in pain and runs to the sink to wash it off. As Becky gets her other hand out of the bonds, Lady Daryl pulls out a firearm and aims for Diego. Becky reacts in a flash, throwing a sharp knife right at her head. That was easy. Hearing Daryl's heavy footsteps returning, Becky vanishes into the shadows. Daryl chases her out into the deep woods. She arrives at a specific spot she had marked earlier. Daryl takes a heavy step forward and gets caught up in a hidden animal trap. He groans, takes another step, and gets caught in a second trap. He stumbles and falls face down directly into a third trap. That's the end for our last bad guy. Becky walks up to his body and retrieves her coordinate key. She goes back to the house and takes her dog. Sometime later, Becky is sitting at a table inside CIA headquarters. A senior CIA agent expresses her absolute shock. A 16-year-old took out an entire extremist cell that they had been tracking for years. The agent then asks her if she would like to join the CIA. Becky agrees without hesitation. For her very first mission, she locates the runaway Turner at a remote spot. She aims a heavy explosive launcher at him and fires, taking him out once and for all. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification to watch more videos like this.